Desert Dancer is essentially about young people fighting for their dreams. Desert Dancer is the true story of Afshin Ghaffarian, a young man in Iran who had a dream of becoming a dancer. However, in Iran, it's actually forbidden and in most cases illegal to dance. And it's the story about how he goes about becoming a dancer despite all of the restrictions, by forming an underground dance company in university, by hacking into YouTube to watch the greats and learn from the greats like Pina Bausch or Martha Graham or Michael Jackson how to dance. And then it's the story about how they go on putting on a performance in the only place that he, Afshin, and his friends are free to do it, which is in the desert 100 miles outside of the city, where there would be no militia, no besieged to arrest them for dancing, and the brave students that come and watch them, and how that desert dance sets into motion events during a time of uprising of the youth that would put Afshin's life in danger. And it's a story about how he ends up escaping and winning his freedom through dance. The film is built around this one belief that no matter who you are, what religion you are, what race or creed you are, we all have the same rights. And we all have the same right to fulfill and to live our dreams, no matter what they are, no matter how big or how small. And Afshin's story is very symbolic of that belief and of that hope and of that fight. I woke up and I read the newspaper, and it was the Sunday Times, and on page 7, I think, there was this story about this Iranian dancer called Afshin, and how he had put on a performance in the desert, been arrested because he was a dancer, and he had to escape. And I was fascinated by this story because I had no idea that it was illegal to dance in Iran. And in fact, no one I knew that it was forbidden to dance in Iran. And I found that to be absolutely fascinating. And as an artist, as a filmmaker, every time I met people and would tell them this story, they would just be mesmerized. And it's, I come from a background of loving James Cameron and Peter Jackson, and this would be the last thing I thought I would fall in love with as my first film, and yet it became the oxygen I had to breathe. I did my best to study as much as I could about the Iranian community. What I discovered, which made Afshin's story all the more important and poignant, was that Iran was actually the first ever country in the world to have a recorded charter on human rights by Cyrus the Great 2,000 years ago. So this was a country that was the first to promote human rights. Not only that, it was the first country to really produce incredible works of art, poetry, Rumi. And you look at this, and then you look at what the country is today. It still has that, but in a very different prism. I wanted to make a film that was universal, and to achieve that, I wanted actors from all over the world. I felt that Afshin's story wasn't just a story about Iran, it was a story about repression and persecution all over the world, whether it's your family or whether it's your government. And I felt that people all over the world could connect to having a dream, fighting for that dream, and striving for that. I not only found the right actor for the part when I met Reece, I found the right partner in making this film. What I love about Reece is that he gives such beautiful detail in his performances. He really inhabits the character. He went through a dramatic physical change, lost a lot of weight, and really embodied the spirit and the passion that Afshin has, and his nobility. Reece dedicated himself to this part and dedicated himself to the training and to the dance, and transformed into Afshin through many, many, many months of training. There's no fooling Tom Cullen. He'll always, if there's a false note, he'll pick up on it. And Ardi, his character, which is short for Ardavan, he was someone. he as a character is an amalgamation of a few of Afshin's friends that we've created. And so he not only had to inhabit one or two, but a group of real people and bring them cohesively into one person in such a warm and embracing manner. And he has this wonderful quality of being so powerfully physically, but yet so sweet and so emotional and so sensitive. And it's a beautiful dynamic that he has with Afshin, and it's a beautiful spirit and energy that he brings into the film. I loved working with him. He was just wonderful. She was fiercely passionate about telling her story, about telling Elaheh's story. And I think Freida felt it was symbolic of other women in the world and other people in the world that were victims to both drugs or circumstance. She dedicated herself and went on an emotional and a physical transformation through at least 12 months of training. It's very, very hard to teach someone in 1 year what dancers take 10 to do from an early age, and she did it. Well, the chemistry between Afshin and Ardi and all of the other actors was born in the rehearsals and born in the dance rehearsals of nearly a year. So over a year before we even got the money to make the film, before we knew we were definitely going, these actors would all come together like a family and would embarrass themselves. They would fall over each other, they would trip up, they would hurt themselves, they would be sweating, they would be crying, they would be laughing. We would all be together, and all the barriers were broken down, and they formed really close friendships. And it's what was beautiful and unexpected was seeing how those real friendships translated into the film. No one in the film had any dance experience, most of all me. I'd never been a fan of dance. I'd never really found a way in to it. And when I discovered this story, I loved the idea that Afshin used dance as a narrative device, as a communication to show people how he was protesting, to show people what he had gone through. And he had a saying that dance is his weapon. And I loved the idea of dance being a weapon to fight for freedom. I thought that was fantastic. When I started researching dance, I discovered Akram Khan. And Akram's choreography spoke to me like nothing else I'd ever seen before. And he had this incredible ethereal and spiritual quality to his dance, which I resonated to very strongly. And I would always use Akram's dance to show the actors and to show everyone else involved with the film that this was the quality of what I was after, because it was truly narrative-led and immersive and very spiritual. Akram Khan and Afshin have a synergy in a sense. There's a synchronicity between them because Akram was always, when he was younger, he was forbidden to dance by his parents, and he used to pretend to go to school every day, but he was dancing in his garage for 2 years, and his dad and mum didn't know, and then they found out. And Afshin, at the same time, was also learning how to dance in an underground basement. So there was a synergy there and a connection there. When Akram Khan came on board as our choreographer, we based ourselves in London, and we're at Sadler's Wells, which is almost like the heartbeat of dance in London. And we were there with our little troupe of actors and our film, and we were learning how to dance and discovering the choreography in Sadler's Wells. There was no script for the dance. There was no. It was always about discovery in the room, and Akram always says that's the purest form of dance is how to discover the choreography, how to feel it, with no set agenda, with no set plan, and that's what we would go in every day, and it was pure creativity. There was an innocence about it as well, which I really loved. There wasn't anyone watching over my shoulder. And it was an incredible experience to do that and to spend that amount of time with both Freida, Reece and Tom in that dance centre with Akram Khan. It was incredible. There were no body doubles in this film, so I didn't want to cut to feet or cut to body parts or I just wanted to be with the actors and be with their bodies. in this and just have it as a really intimate moment and stay on a wide, and then when I come into a close, just stay on them as long as I could and be as truthful as I could with it. I didn't want to be flashy. It's not a music video. I wanted it to have an old school cinematic quality. Reece shared a story about how in acting school that they taught the actors how to let go by just looking at one point and then just following the other actor's hand. And so Reece and Freida started mucking around with this. And for some reason, by some stroke of fate, this love song started playing over the speakers, and Reece started doing this. And I turned around to Reece and I asked him to do it tenderly. I said, can you just do it tenderly? And he agreed. And then everything just slowed down. And she just lost, I just watched as she lost herself in the moment. And everything just went like this. And I had tears in my eyes. I was speechless. Afshin's story takes place during the Green Movement of 2009, which is when millions of youth were voting in the elections for change. And we all saw it on the news. And when it's widely perceived that the vote was rigged and that the regime that was in power stayed in power, and none of the changes, none of the extra freedoms, little freedoms that the youth were asking for were going to be given to them. What's fascinating about the Iranian youth and how they went about doing that was they're told you're not allowed to make noise by the police. So they did silent protests. Millions of people protesting silently. They were fiercely intelligent, highly educated. 70% of the population are under the age of 30 or 35. And these are people that are growing up knowing all of them have family in America, all of them have family in Europe. They all know what's going on around the world. They are so clever, and yet in their country, the most basic little freedoms that we take for granted are not awarded to them. They're not allowed to go on YouTube. They're not allowed to go on Twitter. They're blocked. So they use proxy servers. They hack in past the firewall that the government sets up and have access to social networking. But those elements can seem quite alien to us, and we can feel quite distant. Oh, that's not our world. But when you start talking about music, and when you start talking about dance, and when you start talking about those things that you were just, why would they be banned? And then you tell a story that's based around that, in that world, the world of the behind closed doors and outside, it was really fascinating. Casablanca in Morocco stood in for Tehran. And, Morocco has a very rich history in filmmaking. All of Ridley Scott's films are shot there. Many films are shot there. Game of Thrones are shot there. And so they have very experienced crews, and they have a very can-do attitude. And this film was made, for no money, practically. And the opportunities that we had in Morocco were amazing. So, we put the call out, and so many thousands of people started applying, wanting to be in the film, and that's how we were able to tell this the protests with such a powerful force of people, because it had to be real, and I wanted the camera in it. I don't want a crane. I don't want to go wide. I don't want to go, oh, look how big and impressive this is. It's not about that. I wanted people to feel what it was like to be in the middle of a protest and to be there with Afshin and to be this close with him. It's the centerpiece of the film. I had heard about these locations in Morocco where Lawrence of Arabia was filmed, and no one had actually shot down there. Because it's quite far down, right on the southern border of the country. What people don't know is that you can't really dance on sand because your feet sink. So what we did was we dug a hole, and then we dug a massive hole about 20 meters by 20 meters, and we put wooden boards. And then we put carpet on the wooden boards, and then we put the sand on it again. So at least the surface would be hard when they were dancing. So that was really interesting. But it was still very difficult to dance there. I think the audience, when they see the film, will be left with a sense of unity and hope about what's possible when you do fight for your dreams. I hope it's a very inspiring film. I hope it's a film that people all around the world can connect to, whether they like dance or not. I hope it's a film that people that don't like dance suddenly love dance. And I hope it's a film that people that love dance suddenly go, wow, this is a film actually about dance.